What's happening, everybody? John Ryan here from IGN, joined by my good friend Brandon Tyrell.
Hello.
And Brandon, you saw a game this week called Outward.
That's right.
That sounds really, really cool. So why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Outward is an open world RPG. To give you a little context, JR and I love RPGs. We play all of them. We play D&D together, so we're huge fantasy nerds. Outward is an open world RPG, but it's supposed to be more of a grounded, realistic game. One of the coolest things about it right off the bat is that it's entirely playable in cooperative mode.
Love that.
So like most games,
like, are you talking just online or like
No, you can do it local co-op, you can do
yes.
it online co-op, and if you do it local co-op, it does make use of obviously the split screen horizontally, so
Right.
you and your buddy can actually see what you're doing together.
Awesome.
And that's cool because, you know, if you love long open world RPGs
Right.
like Inquisition or Skyrim or Witcher 3, you share stories, but you don't really get to experience it together.
Yeah, and now you can say, you know, like, hey, come over, let's have an adventure tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the coolest things about Outward to me is it's not like a high fantasy game where you are automatically the chosen one or the hero. You're not the Inquisitor, you're not the Dragonborn, you're not Geralt the White Wolf. You are just a person. You're just a random person
some guy
in this fantasy world, and you need to. The game starts with you having incurred this massive debt from your family.
No!
And the human races of the world it's very tribal. So like your tribe is like, hey, you have 5 days to pay this debt off, or bad things are going to happen.
Rise and shine, Trog spawn. You think you can nip off for 4 months and not pay what you owe the tribe?
So you're like, okay, now I guess I have to go out in the world and make money. And that sort of sets up the idea of the game, which is it is a realistic, grounded version of a high fantasy RPG.
So it's basically it's a high fantasy world where Geralt or, you know, a D&D hero might exist, but you're a regular NPC who comes out from town and is like, oh, hello, adventurers. You could
pretty much. So like when Geralt rides into a town, the guard's like, oh, I used to be an adventurer like you.
You're not even that guard.
You're not even that guard.
Right.
You're just like the butcher boy who's like, oh, great.
I really love that.
My dad really screwed things up, so now I have to go find a wealth.
So that means that like surviving in this world is going to be a lot more difficult than it would be for someone who's like basically a superhero like Geralt or like the
Exactly,
Dragonborn.
and that brings in the idea of this game, which is survival and realism. This is not a game where you just like magically wander into the wilderness. You have to eat, you have to drink, you have to sleep, you have hunger, thirst, and sleep needs that you constantly have to fulfill. And it's not as easy as just like you kill a pig and like now I can eat bacon. It's you kill a hyena out in the world and you carve out some meat from it, but then you have to build a campfire to cook it, because if you eat raw meat, you'll get a disease. Or you could get a disease.
Right.
There's a lot of like RNG involved in it, which is really cool to me because like you can roll the dice if you're just in a really bad place.
Right.
So when I played it with a developer, we played in co-op, and like we killed a hyena, and I had to go strip bark off a tree to build a campfire to cook the meat so I could eat it and regain some health.
And you're saying that there's this cool thing with the campfire where it's like you can't even just like lay down to sleep and then get better. You have to like figure out how much of the night you want to prepare your shit for the next day, or how much you want to devote to being like, oh, is anything gonna come murder me tonight?
Yeah, pretty much. So like kind of old school gold box RPGs where you know you camp. It's like you have a 10% chance to be ambushed by goblins tonight.
Right.
There's
no thank you. I don't want to be ambushed.
Similar elements to that where you get 3 hide, you make an improvised bedroll, you sleep out in the wilderness. It comes up with this screen where it's like, how many hours do you want to sleep? How many hours do you want to be on guard duty?
Cool.
How many hours do you want to repair your equipment because your equipment degrades and breaks over time?
Right.
So if you decide I need to sleep 4 hours to regain my health and stamina, because the more damage you take and the more stamina you use without letting it recharge, you lose max health and stamina. So over time you have to sleep.
Interesting. So it's like
recharge.
the more that I swing and do exercise, like I can't necessarily just take a quick, be like, whew, all right, well, I'm super good now.
Yeah, so unlike other games where you're just power attack for 5 minutes until the thing falls over, if you really go like all out, you are incurring maximum stamina penalties, which makes the next combat that much harder until you camp and
So you
rest.
really have to think about how is this going to affect me, not just right now, but also for the rest of the day, or the next time that I can afford to take a long enough rest to be better.
Exactly, which brings in that whole idea of survivalism and difficulty.
Cool.
Which this game is hard. Combat boils down to essentially sort of Dark Souls style, where you lock on, move around, you have a block, you use skills and attacks to whittle down your opponents. But it really is about having to sit back and pick and choose your battles.
So is it strictly, melee or archery focused, or is there, it is a fantasy world, so obviously, like, I think you said you can only play as a human, at least right now.
Yeah, the human races.
But is there like that high fantasy, like, is there magic? Can I become a spellcaster?
So yeah, outside of like choosing a class, everyone starts as just a person, and you kind of build in or buy skills to emphasize what you want to do. Magic is part of the game, but you don't start with any. You have to like go and seek it out. There is a massive mountain in the center of the first map, and there are 5 really big maps in the world. You have to actually go to this mountain and find some sort of enchanter or something and trade your life essence for magical essence. So the more powerful caster you want to be, the less health and less stamina you have.
Oh, cool.
And it really turns into like this cool balance. The entire game is this really cool balance of like what you want to do. To give you one more idea, because this video is getting a little long, we got to wrap it up. To give you one more idea, there's weight encumbrance. So obviously in all games, like you can't carry 10 greatswords. In this game, you can carry a certain amount of weight in your pockets, but if you find a backpack, you can carry more weight, and that's great. But when you're wearing a backpack, when you dodge or roll, you do it more slowly. When you swing, you use more stamina. So it creates this situation where it's like, oh crap, combat's about to start, and you basically just drop your backpack.
So
and go
all
in
of your
and
gear,
fight.
even if you might need it, you have to say like, I can't choose whether or not I'm going to have this. I just can't have this.
Do you want to carry your stuff, or do you want to be effective in combat? And then the great kicker is if you die and your backpack's still on the ground, now you have to go find your backpack, and there might be bandits rooting through your stuff right now. So there's this whole element, this whole pervasive feeling of like you really have to understand what you're doing, and it's really trial and error and risk versus reward. And as a big open world RPG fantasy fan and a fan of hard games like Dark Souls, like this really speaks to me. Plus, we get to play it together. So.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. When can we play it together?
Yeah, so Outward comes out. It's totally out on Xbox One, PS4, and on Steam on March 26th.
That's crazy soon.
It's
awesome.
very, very soon. So you can check it out. We already have some content up there, but you can check out IGN for some written thoughts that go into a little more detail.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing about Outward with me.
Thank you.
And thanks you guys for watching.